This is Ashish R. Bedekar, and welcome to my podcast, The ARP Show. I'm super thrilled to introduce today's guest, the legendary Hillel Fuld. Hillel is named as Israel's top marketeer and the man transforming startup nation to scale-up nation by Forbes. He's a tech journalist, startup marketer, and technology expert. Hillel works with technology companies and accompanies them from idea to revenue. He has worked with many leading tech brands as an influencer. These includes Google, Oracle, Huawei, and many more. Hillel's work has been featured in CNBC, Inc. magazine, Fast Company, Entrepreneur magazine, TechCrunch, etc. Welcome to the show, Hillel. Do share your life journey and how you became a global thought leader. And then we would move into what you feel are the top 5 technology trends to look out for. Over to you, Hillel.
Thank you so much for having me, and appreciate the kind words. You want me to jump in on how I started?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So I'm from New York originally, and I've been in Israel for about 3 decades. And many years ago, I was at my first job, and I was just bored out of my mind. And I decided, all right, I love tech, I love writing. I'm going to start writing on the internet. I didn't call it a blog because that wasn't a word. I didn't have any business model. I just loved tech and I loved writing. I started writing, and entrepreneurs started to reach out to me, and I'd meet them and really just try to help. And one thing led to another, and I just built myself this portfolio of companies that I work with, and I'm a kid in a candy store having the best time. That's my story right there.
Excellent. Many times, just as they say, follow your passion and things will fall in place. So I think that's the best way. Yeah. So Hillel, as we discussed on this show, I request the guests to share their perspectives on areas of their interest. And as a technology visionary and getting deep embedded in the tech space, I request you to share your top 5 perspectives or top 5 technology trends which you feel are something to watch out over the next few years. Or do you have it?
Right. So, I see a lot of tech, a ton of tech, but there are some things that stand out, some of which people know and are talking about, some of which people aren't talking about. So first of all, I am tremendously bullish on drone technology. People have drones for recreational purposes. People fly them. People have a good time with them. Great. But in reality, I don't think most people understand the sophistication of a drone. A drone, I'm not even talking about the commercial drones, just normal, consumer drones. We're talking about a device that fits in the palm of your hand, that has sensors for obstacle avoidance in all directions, with 19 GPS satellites connected to it from space at any given moment, that can fly 50 miles an hour, record in 4K with 50, 60, 70 megapixel stills cameras. We're talking about an incredibly sophisticated device, and I think that, well, it's a lot of fun to fly them recreationally. I believe that drones are going to change our life pretty quickly and pretty significantly, whether it's delivering food, to delivering medicine, to evacuating people in war zones, and to many other kind of use cases. Drones are really going to change everything, in my opinion. I think we're just getting started, and I'm a big fan of drones. So I believe there's big future for drone technology. That's first of all. Another thing that I'm super excited about is, let's call it human-computer interaction, kind of the way we interact with our devices, right? The fact that we use a mouse in 2023 is just absurd. It's just ridiculous. And even our phones, where we walk around in the streets swiping a piece of glass, it's ridiculous. It's objectively primitive. And I think that, whether it's AR, obviously Apple's jumping into AR with the Vision Pro, or another kind of format, the way we interact with our computers is going to fundamentally change in the near future. And again, it might be glasses, it might be something else, but I can guarantee you that in 10 years from now, we are not going to be using a mouse, and we for sure are not going to be walking around with a slab of glass in our face and bumping into poles. So that's going to change drastically for sure. Another thing is obviously transportation, right? I think, a steering wheel is going to be extinct pretty soon. I've had the incredible opportunity to experience next-gen autonomous vehicles, and I've driven in a car that was fully autonomous, that was merging into traffic. It's magical. I've never felt like I was more in the future than that day. And so, I think transportation is going to change drastically very, very soon. I think that, I don't think it comes to surprise to anyone, but I think AI is just getting started. And I don't think people realize, the significance of AI and generative AI. Right now it's a nice gimmick and people use it, but it's so much more. And I think that, people are scared that it's going to replace humans. I'm excited that it's going to replace humans. I think when it replaces humans, humans are going to be able to focus on things that are a little more challenging and actually leverage the brain they have in their heads, while computers replace us for things that are a commodity. So I'm very, very excited about that. And I guess the last trend I'll say, I think I'm up to 5, I would say healthcare, right? I think healthcare, obviously there's a lot of tech right now in healthcare, but I think it's completely primitive and archaic and broken. Whether it doesn't really matter what country you're in, whether it's socialized medicine like here in Israel, or it's, regular medicine, not socialized like in America, healthcare has to change significantly. And there are so many examples of this, from, the tests that we do, to the ability to read those tests, to, even urine testing. Like the fact that we walk around with a glass of urine in a doctor's office, like it's crazy. Like it hasn't evolved. And so, there's a lot of tech going on right now. And I'm very excited about healthcare. I think that's going to change drastically, and it's going to happen quickly. So I'm pretty excited about that. So those are my top predictions in terms of trends in tech.
Wow, great. Thanks. I think that's a very comprehensive area. When you talk of things like AI and healthcare, of course, the first question which comes to the mind are regulation and ethics, and what the kind of either technology control or government control. So how do you see that, going around? Or even that could be the case even in drones, right? For example, there could be military areas or government areas. It's kind of a no-fly zone, right? So how do you see that kind of catching up in terms of regulation?
Yeah, I think regulation. Drones are going to have to be regulated, right? Because if you think about it, I mean, I could walk into a store right now, buy a drone, and like literally spy on people a mile away. I could fly up to their window and record them in 4K. It's crazy, right? So I think that's definitely going to be regulated. I hope we don't over-regulate it, but I think that's going to be regulated. I think in general, I think regulation, as a whole, is a good thing, right? Because technology can obviously be dangerous, and it can be used for malicious purposes. But then again, it's important to not go too far with regulation. So I am happy that it's being regulated. I am a little worried that it's going to be over-regulated.
Specifically, when you talk of healthcare, another area which becomes important is, for example, things like security or privacy, or things like who owns the data or who's important data. So we would see, I think, a lot of some clarity on that, specifically when it's a kind of mixture of multiple trends. Like, for example, look at maybe a drone which is involved in kind of sending medicines to far-flung areas, and they have got AI at the back end for doing some optimization, things like that. So also I guess you would see a lot of many trends kind of coming together at many areas. Now in terms of adoption, because one of the big things which everyone says that it's good to have trends, but many of the trends are at very initial phase, and what's the real business ROI. So for startups who are looking to focus in these areas, what would be your advice in terms of building a business plan or creating or thinking what to do in these areas? Any idea?
Yeah, so I think, what we've done traditionally in many cases is a new technology comes around, everybody jumps on the bandwagon, everyone's, generative AI, everyone's generative AI, right? But instead of focusing on the technology, focus on the actual use case, right? What do I actually need it for? What are the actual challenges that AI could solve? So for example, we've had VR for years. Has anybody really cracked the use case? I mean, no. Like, yeah, okay, my kids use it at home, but it's cute, that's nice. But like, have we really used VR in any significant, meaningful way? The answer is no. And this is just one example. Every time there's a new technology, everyone jumps on the bandwagon, and very few companies actually focus on the utility, the actual use case, what this can be used for to actually, change the world, make the world a better place, or even not make the world a better place, just bring actual utility, actual, practical usages versus just, I'm generative AI. So, I think we're going to see tons, we're already seeing tons, but we're going to see hundreds, maybe thousands of companies jump on the generative AI bandwagon. Few of them will survive. There'll be massive consolidation. And at the end of the day, there's probably going to be 10, 15 companies standing that will actually use generative AI to do something meaningful.
Right. And talking of AI, the recent news of, Llama 2 and Microsoft is really creating lots of buzz. So, new business models and new landscape would always evolve. Let's shift our focus on the human-computer interface, which you mentioned, right? And, as you rightly mentioned, mouse has been around for so many years. It's time for some change. I mean, Steve Jobs tried doing that with the iPad to some extent. So what are your views on what could be the next interface for a human computer? Would it be something like a Neuralink where you think and the work gets happened, or what do you think?
So we're far away from that. That's not going to happen so soon because, obviously to get approval to do that, you need massive testing. So we're not there yet. But, I think, even glasses, right? I mean, we've had Google Glass, we've had, Snapchat spectacles. This is not a new thing. And Oakley, no, who made them? One of the glasses companies, I'm forgetting their name right now, the big one. But, everyone's making glasses. No one's cracked it yet. But I think at the end of the day, I'm not sure exactly what the form factor is going to be. But if you think about it, most of our use cases with computers or with mobile, most of us, again, I'm putting aside, let's say, heavy computing like video editing. What are most of us doing? We're checking email, we're checking messaging, we're communicating, surfing the web, checking Twitter. There's no reason that I need a big computer or even a mobile phone for that. If I have glasses with even a basic processor in it and connection to the internet and the ability to project a hologram, there's no reason that should not, be super helpful, super effective in doing most of what I need from a computing perspective. So, the question is, who's going to do it and when it will happen? But I have no doubt that it will happen. We will not be using, in my opinion, I think the iPhone department of Apple will not be around forever. I think it's going to be replaced by some other form factor.
Great. Any very interesting startup or companies in these areas which you'd like to make a mention of? Some real cool stuff which you're seeing.
There are so many. I mean, listen, obviously, Magic Leap, Magic Leap raised billions and billions of dollars, and they did something unbelievable. But again, it's a perfect example. They didn't know what to do with the technology, right? But I still think they're incredible technology. And that's just one example. The HoloLens is amazing. I think it's amazing. Are we going to use it practically? Not so sure. But the technology is unbelievable. Many of these, headsets, obviously Google Glass was garbage, right? Because the field of view was garbage, the battery was garbage, but the concept was amazing. And so, the list is endless. But to me, if you'd ask me the coolest experience I've had in the VR, AR, MR kind of world, it would be Magic Leap by far.
Wow. Also, you made a very nice reference to Google Glass. And if you contrast that with, again, the re-emergence of the Apple Vision devices, I think it's the classical Gartner hype cycle in action, right? Wherein you've got super fantastic expectations, and then maybe after a few years, people try to adopt it in the way. So that's great. Another thing which always people kind of say that many of these trends are especially only for very, very top of the pyramid, very rich countries and companies, or they can also be great tools to really do a wider good from let's say developing countries, or kind of leapfrogging over technology divides and really making an impact. Because I'm just thinking aloud. For example, if you look at drones have been around being used for maybe mapping, or used for kind of getting stats on deforestation or things like that. So have you seen any use cases in which all these technologies are used in a very in a different perspective from, let's say, environment, or let's say agriculture or things like that?
I mean, the biggest drone delivery company in the world is an Israeli startup called Flytrex. Flytrex was founded, he's the CEO, a guy named Yariv Bash, who was the CEO of Space IL before, the Israeli company that went to the moon. He's a fascinating guy. He's in a wheelchair, actually. He was in a skiing accident, and he's paralyzed from the waist down. And he founded Flytrex, and they do deliveries of goods, whether it's food or other things, using drones. And that's such an obvious use case. How is it going to work? Again, regulation. You can't just land in the middle of New York City, right? But, I have no doubt that again, in 5 years from now, we're not going to have delivery boys coming on motorcycles to our house. It's ridiculous. So I think that that's one obvious use case.
Got it. Yeah, in fact, I was checking some time back of use of drones as firefighting drones, right? So many of the things which are very dangerous or such areas, right, where there's a threat to human life, all that can be offloaded to drones or robotics and the like. Also, it's really interesting to see, the kind of evolution of, say, robotics or drones over a span of 10 years or so. Because now, if you look at the robotics, for example, from Boston and other places, they're like a really in a very accelerated way. One challenge which always comes, and that we have seen a few years back, is the silicon or electronic or chipsets is a potential roadblock or a problem area, weakling in this entire thing. So that again is something which always would also be there in such technologies. But in all these technologies which you mentioned, what are the kind of risk or threats to these technology adoptions in your perspective?
I mean, I just think there's an educational element here, right? People have to understand that they shouldn't be so scared of technology. Because if you think about it, every time new technology comes out, every single time, forever, since technology was invented, right? I mean, even like the tractor, right? Farmers freaked out. They were terrified that it was going to take their jobs, right? And now everyone's scared of AI. Everyone's scared of the mobile phone. People are scared of social media. People are scared of the internet. People are scared of print, right? Whenever new technology comes out, people freak out. So there is a question here of like education, right? And even like a plant implanted in your brain. Like everyone's like, oh my God, that's crazy. That will be the end of humanity. Will it? I mean, if a chip can be implanted with no, obviously no pain, and you don't have to worry about danger, and it can just make you smarter, I'm not sure that that's such a bad thing. Maybe it is, maybe it's debatable, but like people have to stop being scared of new technologies. The world evolves, there's new technologies, you have to come around and adopt them.
Right. In fact, I read a very interesting article which drew parallel of autonomous vehicles and elevators, right? So before automated elevators, you had a liftman to ferry you up and down. And when it was a rise of automation, automated elevators, it was the same thing, right? Whether people said, oh, can we trust a machine? It's really good to have liftman, personal touch. So, those things. Similarly, at one point of time when there were a lot of calculators kind of made their way in mainstream, people were concerned whether it's going to really impact the math teacher, for example, right? But as we all see, people adopt, and there are new expansive opportunities where everyone kind of gets used. Another thing which I just wanted to check with you is, do you see convergence of one or more such high-tech areas or high-tech trends in very traditional industries? So that kind of gives a fillip to from a digital transformation perspective. For example, let's say if you look at highly regulated industries or traditional manufacturing, right, which is traditionally not seen as a very, very sexy area. Have you seen any interesting use cases where such adoption of latest technologies there in so-called traditional industry, and that kind of really is changing things?
Yeah, I think that's, if you look at all of the big companies in tech, they all did the same thing, right? What did Uber do? They used technology to disrupt transportation. Airbnb did it to hospitality. Facebook and Meta did it to communication. Lemonade did it to insurance. So I think it's all the same. I mean, it's all the same thing. And so I think all of the old industries, every single one of them, is being touched by technology now. Some of them have been deeply disrupted. Some of them are just getting started. Like for example, legal, right? The world of law. There's legal tech companies, but it still conducts itself super primitively, right? So that's going to change for sure. And even an example of something that a drone can do, even like the fact that in 2023, we see skyscrapers, tall buildings that have someone on a rope hanging down to clean the windows is literally absurd. Like, why are we not using drones? So, construction and real estate and property tech, all of these things are going to fundamentally change over the next couple of years, and it's just a question of when, not if.
Right, right. So, if you just pause for a second and think that, there would have been many technology trends or technology forecasts done in the past, and many of them did not live up to their expectation, or they were kind of damn squibs. Any thoughts on that? Some technology which you felt would be really hot, but it really didn't turn out that way?
Yeah, I mean that's the spectacles and Google Glass, right? At the time, we were like, Google Glass is like the future of everything, right? Everyone's like freaking out, but it wasn't, right? Same thing with Magic Leap. It's all the same stuff, right? So I think, these guys all tried to build form factors to enable us to interact with our computers in a more effective way, and they've all failed. So, it's going to succeed, but we're not there yet.
Right, right. I guess also many of these areas, specifically when it is related with the human-computer interface, it's better to go by a kind of creeping change versus a very dramatic change. Because once it is a creeping change, people are more comfortable adoption, rather than
Right.
something which they comes as a major surprise. So great, I think.
Well, I mean, just to push back on that. I mean, again, look at how fast all of this new technology. I mean, you remember, I remember, when the iPhone came out, that was like, oh my God, the whole world changed. That just happened, 2007. That's not so long ago, right? And everyone was freaking out. Mobile phones before that, smartphones, Blackberries, Nokia. Dude, it's not that long ago that we didn't have a mobile phone, right? So things are moving pretty fast, and I don't have a problem with that. Some people do, I don't.
Great, great, great. So thanks, Hillel. It was a wonderful insight into technology trends. And thank you, dear listeners, for tuning in. We'll have some, social media links, etc., as accompaniment in the show call notes. And do share, like this podcast. Thank you again.